The deadlift is one of the most popular movements in the gym, especially for strength athletes. But even if you're not a strength athlete, chances are you have either done the deadlift yourself or have at least heard of it. And it's a lot of fun. Like I love deadlifts. I think they're a great movement, both for strength, hypertrophy. I think they're just a lot of fun. However, they are also very complicated, not just to execute, not just technique wise, but most definitely programming wise. They can be really tricky to figure out. So in this video, I'm going to give you one very powerful deadlift hack that has completely evolved my deadlift over the years. Okay, so the topic of discussion is fatigue management. And we're not going to talk about everything when it comes to fatigue management, but I'm going to give you two very specific things that I think they're going to blow your mind. I genuinely do. Now, fatigue management does also sound a little boring, I know, but I promise you, especially with the deadlift, it goes a really long way, probably the longest way. So let's talk about it. First, of course, naturally, we have to put this on the board, guys. Now I'm standing over there, so I'm going to try and just lean heavy on the left side here in terms of writing this stuff out. That way you guys can see it. Okay, so fatigue management, the very first thing we're going to talk about, which you've heard me talk about before, is pacing. Yep. I know you guys are super excited about this one. Okay, so pacing. Pacing, of course, is going to be huge. And what do we mean by pacing? We just mean, and this is kind of like my own bullshit definition, so don't crucify me if this is kind of like inaccurate if you're like a powerlifting guru. But I would describe pacing as the rate at which you progress, or the rate of progression prescribed. So in other words, we're not going in to just max out every single day. Those days are gone. Okay, that's silly, that's stupid, you're probably gonna get hurt, and it's just not smart, it's just not optimal. There are better ways. So we need to pace ourselves, right? We create pacing. We're very intentional about the weights we select, the reps, the sets, all of that. Okay, so that's pacing. So there's two things regarding pacing that I want you to think about. The first is the micro, the second is the macro. Okay, cool. So I know I said first micro, second macro, but we're gonna talk about macro first because it makes the most sense. It's kind of like a top-down approach. So macro simply refers to the big picture. Let's say you are a powerlifter, you're 16 weeks out, boom, that's the macro. How many blocks is that? For those of you who don't know, a block usually refers to 4 weeks worth of training. So one block is 4 weeks. So if you have 16 weeks to prepare for a meet, that's 4 training blocks. The reason why we talk in blocks is because it's just easier to think about, like, it's not really the phases of training. It's more so like you're building momentum, right? Each block kind of serves a purpose. For example, maybe you have an intro block and then, you spend a block focusing on doubles, and then you spend a block focusing on singles, then you have a block where you're just peaking and tapering, etc., right? Okay, so that's the powerlifting context. But let's say you are an athlete, you're in your off season, you want to get strong, deadlifts are fun, so you choose to do some deadlifts. You give yourself 8 weeks, you give yourself 2 blocks, 2 months, right? To build up your deadlift. That's really important to know. You have to think about the macro in order to decide what your pacing is going to look like. And remember, pacing is essentially just the rate at which you choose to progress. And that means like literally like the rate at which you give yourself certain loads so that you're introducing a particular stimulus so that you're getting a particular adaptation. Last thing I'll say about macro is you want to have a plan, like you want to have a battle plan, right? You know where you're going to end up. Again, if you're a power lifter and you're 16 weeks out from the meet, you're going to want to try to hit maybe a 1 rep max, or at least execute 1 rep in the deadlift really, really well with heavy weight, maybe the heaviest weights, So you know where you want to end up. So that kind of tells you, like, it gives you a gauge as to where you should probably begin. And then you kind of know, like, block to block, or month to month rather, where should I be? Where should I be at the end of that training block, right? Again, that will then help you determine your pacing. And in my opinion, this is just my opinion, I think there should be really big gaps. So I think that you shouldn't be afraid to start lighter than usual so that you can end heavier than usual. And that would mean that you have bigger jumps week to week, essentially, but we're gonna talk about that in a second. Ideally, block to block, the pacing, it doesn't have to be even, it doesn't have to be, there's no right or wrong necessarily, but it does have to make sense. Okay, it really should make sense, and everything should flow and build momentum moving towards that end game, that end goal. Okay, so everything should be paced. It should be on pace for that end game, for that end goal. Okay, micro. So micro, this doesn't count if we don't circle it, so I have to circle it. So micro simply refers to the week to week progression, which is a little bit more finicky because that's kind of where the magic happens, obviously. And you can definitely make some big mistakes when it comes to deadlift training if you push the progression too fast, too hard, week to week. But then this micro also like refers to your session to session. So like if you have a primary and a secondary deadlift, what does that pacing look like? How far back does, let's say, the secondary trail behind the primary, that sort of thing. But yeah, essentially it's just what does it look like inside the block, right? At the small scale, at the local level, so to speak, what does your pacing look like? What are the jumps you're taking week to week? Again, in my opinion, take bigger jumps, opt for bigger jumps. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. You're gonna save your gas because again, this is all in the name of fatigue management. The last thing we wanna do is dig ourselves in a massive fatigue pit, a massive fatigue hole. I'm telling you right now, it's so hard to get rid of it. I will say, in my experience, both for myself and for athletes of mine I've had in the past, and even just friends of mine who are elite level lifters, deadlift is usually, it's the one lift that takes the longest to detrain, but it's also the one lift where if you push it way too hard, your fatigue is just, it takes the longest to recover. It really does. Like it just takes so much out of you, not just your muscular fatigue, but your central nervous system. It's just all of it, your fight or flight. Like it taxes you so much. So because of that, we need to manage our fatigue properly. That's the whole purpose of pacing. And that's why, in my opinion, it's better, especially on deadlift, to opt for bigger jumps, not just in your week to week progressions, but also in your warm-ups, which is the cool part about this, which I bet you weren't expecting. But micro pacing also refers to your warm-ups. Get used to taking fewer warm-ups and making bigger jumps. I'm telling you, this will be huge. If you're a powerlifter who competes, this is a fucking game changer. Why? Because what if you're in a meet that's really fucking fast and you need to rest and recover more, right? Let's say your meet was 2.5 hours. That's what Worlds is. It's fast. So now when you're ready to deadlift, you're getting, do you want to take 5 fucking warm-ups? No, you should take like 2 or 3 and call it a day, right? That way you give your body more time to rest and recover. And here's the thing I will say about this, especially with deadlifts, because like I said, they do take so much out of you. Chances are, if you find yourself taking more than 4 warm-ups before your top set or your working sets, the issue is not with your body, the issue is with your mind. Chances are you don't have the confidence, and that's it. It's not that you're not prepared for it. That's it. There's 2 reasons why you would take warm-ups for any given movement. One is to grease the groove of technique. You want to make sure you're in line with your technique. You find that spot, right, that you want to be in, the positioning. And then the second piece is to literally get warm, right? Like to get your heart rate up, to feel ready to lift, okay? Chances are, if your dynamic warm-up was good, was adequate, you're going to find that you don't really need to use the movement to get super warm. Like you're already gonna be pretty warm. So really all you're gonna be doing is greasing the groove. You can also use your warm-ups obviously as a gauge for your top set or your working sets, especially if you've been prescribed RPE. That's fine. But again, it shouldn't take 5 warm-ups to do it. And it shouldn't take taking a weight that's only like 5 or 10 pounds less than what your planned top set is to figure that shit out. So stop fucking doing that. Okay, so I'm gonna give you guys a real life example. Just yesterday, I had a top double with 672 pounds. So I'm gonna tell you what my warm-ups were. 1 red, which is, I don't know what that is, 155. 3 reds, so 375. And then 4 reds with a yellow, so 550, and then my top set. So 3 warm-ups and then my top set, and everything went great. In a meet, I do the exact same thing. Again, pacing. I'm pacing myself for the top set. I'm not making my body do too much. Pacing. Okay, so that's everything here. Let's talk about the second major point when it comes to fatigue management. This one, I can almost guarantee you, okay, so maybe some of you would be aware of it, but not a lot of you. And some of you actually might disagree with me, especially if you've had a lot of years under your belt with like real strength training and strength programming. But I'm telling you, man, this one in particular has been pivotal in my ability to manage my fatigue. I'm telling you, even more than the pacing, like just freaking, this has paid itself forward so many times over. Okay, let's talk about it. Backdowns. I know you're thinking like, well, yeah, no shit, like we all do backdowns, Gavin. No, not gonna go where you think I'm going. Let's put big in all caps. We're gonna put a % sign, and I'm gonna put drop. Okay, so this is the major piece of it. And then I'm gonna put a little asterisk. I'm gonna put low set volume. We're going to put a little dot there. Okay, so take a mental picture of this because once I start standing over there, you're not going to be able to see it, right? So you can't even fucking see me, really. Okay, let's do it. So back downs, big percent drop. What do I mean by this? Typically for your deadlift training, you're going to hit a top set, then you're going to have some back downs. In other words, you're going to hit like your heaviest load of the session or your heaviest set of the session, that sounds better. And then you're going to lower the weights to do some back down sets, okay? My suggestion, don't be afraid to take a massive percent drop for your back downs. For example, let's stick to the same story about my deadlift day yesterday. Hit the top set, 2 reps, 672 pounds, right? I'm on week 3, which means next week is my final week of the block, I believe. Unless we're running a 5-week block this time, but I don't think so. So that means next week is the ultimate week, right? That's the heaviest week of the block. 672, so pretty heavy for 2. You know what my back downs were? 2x5 or 2x4, I forget, with 484 or 464, something like that. Pretty light. Now, mind you, it was light, like it moved, but it felt like kind of hard because deadlifts fucking suck. They're hard, they're taxing. So of course it's going to still feel like I'm doing something, even though it's super, super light. But because it's super, super light, it helps me manage my fatigue, especially week to week and then block to block. You see, I'm not digging myself in these super, super deep fatigue holes. I see people that do all this heavy volume for their back downs with deadlifts, and it's nuts. Even guys who are super well leveraged, which those are the only guys who can get away with not worrying about fatigue management as much. Guys who have like crazy long arms, can get in super crazy sumo positions, and their deadlift is literally just this, right? Those guys, yeah, sure, fucking go crazy. You'll never have to really worry about this because you're so well leveraged for it. Your body's not really doing much, right? But for guys like myself who are basically squatting the bar up, it takes a lot out of us. So we have to be very cognizant of this. Let me give you an idea as to what this could look like in your training. Let's say you hit a top set with 80% and it's a double. Your back downs, instead of it being like a 3x4 or a 3x6 with like 75% or whatever the fuck, drop down by 10%, 15%, maybe even 20%. One thing that I like that we've implemented in my training sometimes, we haven't been doing it recently, but the first back down will be like an 8% drop off. So not crazy, but still pretty sizable. And then the next back down or 2 back downs will be, back down sets, will be an additional 5 to 10%, right? When I'm really, really close to a meet, guys, like I have a cap, a weight cap on my back downs. Sometimes I'm backing down by like 20%, 25%, and I'm totally okay with that. Which brings me now into this last piece here, low set volume. I believe that for deadlift training, you should limit the amount of sets you do, period. I think you should try and do less sets. So you can accumulate tons of volume, sure, fine, whatever. But I really do think that too many sets, it beats the shit out of you way too much. Especially because you get so much work done for your lower body from everything else you do that I don't think, like there's such a high rate of diminishing returns when it comes to deadlift work because, again, dude, like all the squats you do, all the squat accessories you do, anything you do for your lower body is going to benefit your deadlift. Can you argue that are there movements you can do that are hyper-specific to deadlifts and probably will have the most carryover only for the deadlift? Like an RDL or something like that? Yes, absolutely, for sure. But even that, dude, it's like, then do the accessory volume. Like, let that be where you do 3 or 4 sets. But for your deadlifts, I just don't think it's worth it. I don't think the trade-off is there. I don't think you get enough out of that heavy deadlift work or that big amount of deadlift volume on the back downs for it to be worth it. I don't think you get enough out of it. I think your top set is the exposure. It's your tech practice, whatever. And honestly, dude, if you scale it properly, like even the lighter stuff for your back downs can still give you a very quality strength stimulus and hypertrophy stimulus if that's what your goal is. Yeah, that's just my opinion. That's why I put an asterisk here, low set volume. And so again, for me, that might look like 2 sets of 5, 2 sets of 4, 3 sets of 2 maybe. You're not doing 4 sets, 5 sets. I just don't think that's worth it. I don't think it's worth it, especially because you're probably doing a bunch of other shit. You're probably still squatting throughout the week. You're probably doing belt squats, pendulums, split squats, leg extensions, hamstring curls. I mean, all this other shit, dude. So like, there's only so much your body can handle. And since we're talking about fatigue management, we have to talk about that, okay? So guys, dude, that's everything. That's everything I have for you. Hopefully this was short, sweet, to the point. Trying a slightly new method here. I bought my own really, really cool light. I've got some other lights here that I haven't set up yet. Obviously one camera angle, but hopefully you guys got a lot of value out of this. And if you guys are cool with this format, I might stick with this for a little bit longer. Now, the last thing I'll say before you go is, if you are looking for quality programming, quality training resources, trackability features, you know, the whole nine, I have a training app, okay? Look, there's a lot of people who have a training app, but I really do believe in what we're providing. Yeah, the training resources are constantly evolving, and I'm really not sure what I want to do with that just yet, but the programs are great. The trackability features are great. And if you're lost, if you even just want to learn, like if you just want to figure out like, okay, how would Gavin program a power build style training regimen, right? Or a strength specific style training, like what would that look like? I think it's a great opportunity to try it. Try it for a month. If you really fucking hate it, like just let me know and I will absolutely give you your money back. All right, so that's available. And then also too, I have my chalk. Hold on a second, let's grab it. This is a fucked up bag because this is what I've been training with for a while. But this is my new gym chalk. It's available on Amazon. If you guys buy it and you like it, please give us a 5-star review on Amazon. It really helps with the rankings. By far, in my opinion, the best chalk in the fucking game. I have been battle testing this for months. Absolutely love it. I lift with it all the time. Yeah. Okay. All right, guys. That's everything I have for you. Thank you for watching.